Welcome back to Vox in a Box, the podcast that puts a voice in comics. I'm your host, Michael Corley. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are covering Classic X-Men number 79 in the 79th episode of Vox in a Box. It begins with a very interesting caption. It says, 20 years ago, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the Uncanny X-Men. A lot has changed since then. And we see the X-Men doing what they always do, removing trees. Apparently, there is a massive forest near the Xavier mansion. It encroaches every day. If the X-Men do not work quickly, they will be overcome by this forest because they have destroyed so many trees over time. But as the X-Men are getting these trees knocked down, they see a flash of light in the sky. It is the Phoenix effect. And a figure is falling to his death. Storm and Rogue, the Flyers, fly up to catch. It is Scott Summers, Cyclops. Storm is saying to take Cyclops to the infirmary, but Scott is saying, no, there's no time for that. You don't understand. The Dark Phoenix has returned. The floating head of Xavier calls all of the X-Men to report immediately. We cut back to Xavier's office. All of the X-Men are in their battle gear, ready for action. And Xavier is saying when Jean Grey died, he felt her death. He felt it very closely. But he did not feel anything about this miraculous recovery or rebirth. But he's going to use Cerebro, the X-Men's machine that senses mutants and greatly amplifies his natural powers, to see if this really is the return of Dark Phoenix. He puts it on, and suddenly he screams. Xavier's being electrocuted. Rogue, both super strong and almost invulnerable, rips out the cables before he can die. Nightcrawler realizes that he's barely alive, and he has to teleport him to the infirmary. Now, he doesn't want to do this because, as we've heard before, it's very taxing to teleport another living being, both for him, but even more so for the other person. He hopes that the strain of the teleport doesn't kill him, but if he doesn't get the professor to medical care immediately, he's going to die. Wolverine says to Kitty Pryde that this is your department, since you're good at computers. Look at Cerebro and see what's going on. And she says the safety locks have all been disengaged. Everything's been reversed. When he tapped into this, it fired his powers back upon himself. It's a miracle that he survived. Storm is saying, we watched him do the settings. We've seen him do this before. What he did was correct. There's no reason it should have happened. Behind her, Cyclops begins to glow, and he says, actually, there's a simple explanation. He smiles an evil grin, and he says, would you believe the end of the world? And Dark Phoenix rises from his body. And she says, hi, guys. Miss me? Storm tries to electrocute her, but she only has her own electricity fired back upon her. Colossus tries to attack her and punch her, but she just moves out of the way and crushes him with the power of her telekinesis. Kitty Pryde tries to jump through her, hoping that maybe it will somehow disrupt her ability to use her telekinetic powers, but she only gets electrified herself. Her dragon fires fire at Dark Phoenix, only to be backhanded by her. Rogue comes to punch her. She knows that she's almost invulnerable. She should be able to take this out, only to be grabbed by the throat and pulled out of the air by Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix doesn't punch her. She actually just throws her. And it says, ka-boom, and she's sent flying. She asks Wolverine if he wants to try his luck, and he just says, nope. He says, smart move. I've got some errands to run, but we can pick up where I left off. And she is gone. The X-Men are incapacitated. Cyclops is unconscious. They try to contact Corsair, only to see him reporting in saying that the ship has been damaged. She's attacking. We can't hold her off for long. And suddenly they see his form burning. They contact Captain America, leader of the Avengers. They're trying to warn him the threat that Dark Phoenix poses. Suddenly we see Captain America scream with a "Arg!" And in the distance we see a giant Phoenix effect. We can only assume that all of the Avengers, perhaps all of New York, has been destroyed. Back to the infirmary, along with Xavier, Cyclops has been added. He's got a huge wound on his chest from the Dark Phoenix's energy bolt. Nightcrawler is trying to aid him when Cyclops' spirit leaves his body. He's leaving Earth. He's going to the white light. He sees a phantom. And Is it his mother? She tells him it's not time. He still has things to do on Earth. She sends him back. He calls out. He's falling once again, falling away from his mother, and he screams, "Mom!" He wakes up in the infirmary alone. He looks down, and he doesn't have a scratch. Even his uniform isn't even injured. He's wondering where the rest of the X-Men are. But when he comes and finds Colossus and Storm, they attack him. Storm sweeps him forward with a wind. Colossus pounds him to the ground and is about to kill him. The only way he can stop him is by using his optic blasts. He turns and fires at Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, of course, teleports out of the way, but that's what he wanted because Wolverine was behind him. He knows that Nightcrawler often teleports to the ceiling to gain the tactical advantage, so he sweeps his beam across the entire ceiling. Nightcrawler appears only to be struck by his beam. Lockheed, the dragon, comes and blazes fire at him. Cyclops is thinking he doesn't know the extent of Lockheed's powers. He doesn't want to hit him with a full blast. He could kill him. He's trying to get away from the X-Men to figure out what's going on when Kitty Pryde comes out of the wall, grabbing him and says, "Hold it, lady!" Lady? What's going on here? Cyclops goes off the balcony. Kitty, going with him, has no choice to phase unless they're going to smash into the ground. He lets them phase through the ground to the danger room. But Cyclops has been preparing for this. He has transferred the controls of the danger room to a remote control. When Nightcrawler teleports in and tries to use it, it electrocutes him. Using the remote control as the rest of the X-Men come in, he turns the danger room into a simulation of the Savage Land. And suddenly, the X-Men are falling. Storm and Rogue catch Colossus and Wolverine and take them to safety. And we see that Cyclops has figured out what's going on. This is all illusions, and the only person that could be responsible for all of this is Mastermind. And he has to find a way to convince the rest of the X-Men that he is not Phoenix before they kill him. We cut to Madeline Pryor. She is dressed as Dark Phoenix. She's walking around asking if she's crazy. She's in some sort of hell, and standing on the throne of the devil is Mastermind. He introduces himself as Jason Wingard. He explains to her that he's convinced the X-Men that Dark Phoenix is going on a murderous rampage. It will be all too easy when the X-Men see her. They'll think she's Dark Phoenix, and using their powers, they'll kill her because they'll think she has the powers of the Phoenix. A single bolt of lightning, a single punch from Colossus, and she'll be dead. She's asking, "Why are you doing this?" And he says, "Revenge." When the Phoenix undid his control over her mind, she made him one with the cosmos. She put his mind in touch with every point of creation, and it drove him mad. When he finally came back to himself, he found that Jean Grey was dead. He couldn't get his revenge on her, so he's going to get it on the X-Men and on the woman who looks like her. In a series of transformation, he changes into the Japanese crime lord, the old priest, and even Cyclops. He comes forward and says, "Look, it's me!" And he kisses her, and then changes into his true form, that of an ugly, older man. And he says, "If I wished, I could make you love me. I may still do that before you die. Won't that be fun?" Back into the simulation, we see Cyclops running through the jungle that is the pretend Savage Land. He's making his way from the X-Men, setting up an ambush. He fires his optic blast, knocking Wolverine to the ground before he can sense him with his enhanced senses. Colossus is trying to come upon him, only to fall into a trap that Cyclops had set up. As he runs to a different part of the simulation, we see all kinds of flowers on the ground. He has put on some sort of breathing mask. Storm is firing lightning bolts at him. He's thinking that with her aim, she should have hit him. But she hesitated. Is she perhaps seeing through the illusion? Or is she somehow losing control? But he fires his blast and hits her out of the sky. Rogue is thinking to herself, if she was still the evil mutant that everyone thinks she is, she would just let Storm fall. But she doesn't want to be that way anymore. She flies down to catch the Storm, and as they land, Cyclops fires his blast into the flowers. They are a poppy that have a powerful sleep agent and put both Storm and Rogue unconscious. He even mentions that he had pulled her medical file and had particularly made these so they would affect even her superpowered physiology. And in fact, it is Rogue that he has come to take. His crazy plan is his only chance for success. He takes the unconscious Rogue, pulls off her glove. Remember, Rogue's costume covers her head to toe because a single touch and she steals another person's memories and mutant powers. But he doesn't want to touch her. He wants her to touch the unconscious Charles. Xavier, she wakes with a start. Suddenly all of Xavier's memories and powers are flooding into her brain. She's screaming because he's the most powerful telepath on Earth. This is too much information. But he's calming her, Cyclops, talking to her, talking her through it. He has spent hours and hours working with Xavier to build his mental barriers and using the skills that he's learned. He's able to help her. The X-Men all come running into the infirmary. They see Dark Phoenix. And Dark Phoenix is telling them, you must not believe what you see, for it is Cyclops. And he has told Rogue to go into all of their minds, to go into his mind, help them see past the illusions that Mastermind has created. Speaking of which, he creates the illusion of Dark Phoenix right behind them, firing energy bolts at them. But Cyclops is saying it's over. You can only cause us pain with your illusions if we believe in them. But she is saying, what if there is a bit of reality to him? And Cyclops is shot! Wolverine hears the shot even though it was silenced with his enhanced senses. He has an idea. It's dangerous, but they have to try. He calls out to Storm and says, we must stop him. And she brings about a tempest of unimaginable fury. It is smashing into the X-Men, crashing into them. Rogue is putting herself over Xavier's unconscious body to protect him. Rogue calls out, "You've got to stop! You're killing us!" Finally, she relents, and Storm is realizing that violent weather is coming even easier to her now with her new love of chaos and danger. And they see the unconscious form of Jason Wyngarde, not in his handsome mutton chop form, but in his old, ugly form, unconscious. Wolverine doesn't plan to give him a second's notice. He's just going to kill the unconscious Mastermind, but Storm stops him. Kitty comes through the floor to tell them that there's an emergency. Cyclops runs to her and finds the unconscious form of Madelyne Pryor. She, too, was caught up in the storm. Madelyne is not breathing. Cyclops leans forward and starts to give her CPR. He's thinking, breathe, breathe. And she, Scott. And he says, I'm here, my darling. And they kiss. We cut to a cemetery. We see Scott Summers dressed in a tuxedo. He's putting flowers at the grave of Jean Grey. He's saying, I know that you aren't really here. You were blasted into atoms on the moon. But this is where I can talk to you. I loved you, Jean, but I love Madelyne, and I'm glad she isn't you. Because they need to each have their own experiences. This is not Jean Grey Part 2. This is a whole new life that they can have together. And we see a giant tent raised in front of Xavier's school. What's going on here? It is the marriage of Scott Summers and Madelyne Pryor. Everyone is here. The grandparents of Scott Summers. Corsair is there, not wearing his pirate garb, I might add. The inhuman friends of Corsair are watching from a telelink in their spaceship. Kitty is thinking that Wolverine is putting on a brave face, but he is, in fact, terribly hurt inside because, of course, he was supposed to marry Mariko not long ago. And we see some other couples as the wedding advances. It is Amanda Sefton and Nightcrawler, Lilandra and Charles Xavier, Banshee and Moira McTaggart, and looking at each other chastely from the distance, Kitty Pryde and Peter Rasputin Colossus. But the final panel is no supervillains, no attacks, no blasts from evil masterminds, just the priest announcing, I now pronounce you man and wife, and Scott Summers and Madelyne Pryor kiss, and they are married. And that ends Classic X-Men number 79. I was told a long time ago that comic books are basically soap operas. At least superhero comic books are soap operas that are geared towards young boys. And this issue, more than any other, proves that that's absolutely the case. And you know what? I love it. I hope that you've loved it too. And if you've enjoyed this and the other stories, go to iTunes. Give me an iTunes review. It really helps people find the show. You have a wonderful day. I will talk to you soon.